Hi guys, it's Izzy, and today's video is going to be one that I've never really filmed before. I've never really filmed a sort of mystery video on my channel, but I thought, you know what, I watched so many of them myself and I thought, you know what, I'm going to be a really original YouTuber and start doing my own sort of mystery videos. And I am trying to do my own twist on videos that I make here on my channel. I don't want to do cases that I've seen loads of before or anything like that. I want to do more mystery videos and stuff that I'm just generally interested in myself, because I spend hours and hours and hours on YouTube and researching cases anyway. So I thought, you know what, I might share them on my channel. So now I'm not really sure if I want to make just mystery videos, because I have a lot of ideas for videos that I want to make. I do want to cover conspiracies here on my channel. I want to cover dark fairy tales and folklores. There's a lot that I want to cover. So now in the new year I thought that I would finally give this a go, because why not? What have I got to lose? Now this first case that I'm going to talk about is one that generally had me so confused. I was I don't understand how they can even think they were going to get away with this. It's something that really generally has me baffled, and that is the case of Walter Collins. Now a lot of people are familiar with this case from the movie The Changeling. It is based on this case.
Is this Mrs. Christine Collins?
Yes.
I'm the pastor over at St. Paul's Presbyterian. I've made it my mission in life to bring to light all the things the LAPD wish none of us ever knew about.
And yeah, if you haven't already watched it, it's quite a good film. But I was researching this case, and the more and more I found out about this story, I was I'm just so baffled. That's the only way I can describe it, just really truly baffled. The case began on the 10th of March 1928 when Walter Collins went off to the cinema after his mother Christine gave him some money, and that was unfortunately the last time he was seen by anyone. So Christine was waiting for her son to return, but he didn't, which is why she went to the police, because she suspected that it was a kidnapping. He had no reason to run away from home, and he was only 9 years old at the time, so she thought, yeah, he's not gonna go and leave home. Now it wasn't suspected that Walter was held for ransom. His mum was only a telephone operator, and his dad was in prison at the time, so they weren't raking in the money and balling in the money. It just seemed unlikely that it was the motivation of a ransom case. And now because his father was in prison, the police, they investigated anyone that the father might have had beef with, that wanted revenge on the father, so they kidnapped his son. So they followed quite a few leads, but it didn't really lead to anything. There was also reported sightings of Walter with a stranger, and they said that he was a foreign looking man. Apart from, again, these didn't really lead to anything, so the police was really stressed. This case had actually made national news, so there was a lot of pressure on the police force to find this boy, and eventually someone came forward in Illinois and they said that they were Walter.
I'm Captain J.J. Jones, Lincoln Park Juvenile Division. My office supervises all runaway and missing child cases, including your son's, and he's alive, Mrs. Collins. He was picked up 2 days ago by local police in DeKalb, Illinois. He's safe and unharmed.
So obviously this was 5 months later. Christine was delighted that she could be reunited with her son. Photographs were exchanged with Christine from the police force in Illinois, and eventually she agreed to pay to have Walter sent back to where she lived. Christine and Walter lived in California at the time, so they had him sent over on the train. Now this for me is where the case just gets so weird. I don't even understand how this is possible for it to happen. On August the 4th, Christine was reunited with Walter, or so she thought she would be. Immediately it was clear to Christine that the boy getting off the train and being reunited with her was not her son.
Well, aren't you gonna...
It's not my son.
She told the police captain at the time, J.J. Jones, that, this isn't her son. And he was just oh no, the mental trauma of being missing has changed his personality a bit, and he's just got a bit smaller, because he was a lot shorter and a lot tinier than Walter would be. And he was no, he's just been away for 5 months, so he's just not been able to look after himself and all that. And they asked the son, they were what's your name? And he was Walter Collins. I am Walter Collins. And this boy was insisting that he was Walter. And the police captain was see, it's your son. But Christine knew, do you know what I mean? A mother's gonna recognise her own child even if she hasn't seen him for 5 months. This to me is so peculiar that no one believed her that he wasn't her son. She was reunited with a random boy and was told to take him home. Do you know what was suggested to her, even though she clearly knew it wasn't her son? Do you know? They said, why don't you just take him out for a trial? Why don't you just take him home and look after him, try him out? If someone said that to me, I'd be mate, no. Do you know what I mean? I've got a jet black cat. I would recognise him in a room of 100 other black cats. Do you know what I mean? Like, I could spot him because I know my own cat. I don't understand how people can assume that this woman wouldn't recognise her own son. So, you know, Christine, under all the pressure, like there was news reporters there, you know, people were like watching her like be reunited with her son. She felt like under a lot of pressure, and the police like were refusing to take this son back or anything. She was literally left with this kid, so she had basically no choice but to take this random kid home with her, and she knew that it wasn't him. She did, you know, try him out like as best as she could, but she was like, this isn't my son, you know. He spoke completely different, had completely different mannerisms, looked physically different, even though he like resembled Walter. It was clear to her that it wasn't him, and she even went to the point where she got dental records of him which proved that he was a completely different boy. But do you know what happened to poor Christine? She was admitted to the Los Angeles County Hospital psychiatric ward under a code 12, which is conveniently whatever people were sectioned for just being a nuisance and an inconvenience. When people just didn't want to deal with people, they just put them under a code 12 and, you know, just popped them off into a psychiatric ward. They were like, bye Christine. Like, I can't even imagine what she must have gone through. Like, her son had gone missing for 5 months. She was reunited with a like random boy and then was told to go into a mental institution if she didn't believe it wasn't her son. Now, when Christine was in the psychiatric ward, they actually took this Walter and interviewed him. Like, the police captain wanted to know all about his kidnapping, who actually took him. Like, they still had the case to solve, and upon interrogation they found out, in fact, it wasn't Walter. He actually turned out to be 12-year-old Arthur Hutchins Jr., and he basically was like drifting and hitchhiking and saw the resemblance between himself and Walter and took this as an opportunity to move to LA. And basically his motivation was he wanted to meet his favourite actor in Hollywood. So yeah, he was motivated to meet Tom Mix, the actor, and wanted to just move to Hollywood and just saw this as an opportunity to do so. So 10 days later, Christine was released from the hospital and they were like, oops, sorry, it turns out you were right. And basically the case of where Walter was continued, but this is where it takes a darker turn. It then became suspected that Walter was in fact part of the Wineville chicken coop murder, and during this time Walter wasn't the only boy that had gone missing. 2 other boys, for example, that were reported missing were Nelson and Lewis Winslow, and they didn't make a connection between the 2 disappearances at first. This is because the Winslow brothers, they lived 30 miles away from Walter Collins, and the police just didn't make a connection between the 2 disappearances. But yeah, basically what had happened is in Wineville, which has now changed its name to Miraloma after like these cases had been unravelled, because it was pretty grim and the town didn't want to be associated with this. So literally it was so bad the entire town changed its name. So these murders actually occurred when 19-year-old Gordon Northcote moved from Canada with his 13-year-old nephew Sanford Clark to California, and he built up a chicken ranch. Apart from this is where he actually took and abused children and had them killed. So he forced his 13-year-old nephew to participate in these murders, like physically forced him, so obviously that wasn't great. And after 2 years, Sanford's sister became concerned about her brother that had moved away, so she came to visit her brother in California to see what was going on, and it became clear that he was being abused by his uncle. So she went back to Canada and reported this to her mother, who reported the authorities, and then they reported this to the US authorities. So basically he became reported. Gordon had seen authorities pull up to the house, so he asked Sanford to stall them and distract them, because yeah, he basically had Sanford under his thumb. Like, whatever he did, he was so scared of Gordon, like whatever he was asked to do he would do. Like, he was terrified of his uncle. So during this time, Gordon and his mother Sarah Louise actually fled, and they were attempting to move back to Canada, but they were caught in British Columbia and then arrested. Sanford Clark had actually confessed to these murders and basically told what was going on during these chicken coop murders, and the police didn't really fully believe him at first, so they asked for some proper like significant evidence. So he took them back to where the bodies had been buried, and they found clothing items and remains. Apart from, they didn't find any full bodies, because Gordon and his mother had actually taken the bodies out to a desert at night time to burn them and get rid of the evidence. So amongst these remains, Walter's clothing items that he was suspected to be wearing on that day were found. Apart from, there was no like body remains, so they couldn't tell for sure whether he was actually involved in the chicken coop murder. Apart from, Sanford had actually recognised him as being one of the boys, so it was very likely. Now, while Gordon was on trial, Christine actually confronted him and asked him about the killing of his son, and he denied this. Christine, who was obviously in complete denial that her son had been murdered, like she didn't want to hear that, and when he said, oh no, I didn't kill your son, she believed him and was like, oh, my son's still alive, even though the evidence does point towards him being in the chicken coop murders and possibly not have got away. Now, to everyone's surprise, Gordon's mother actually confessed to the murders, but people didn't think that she acted alone. Like, it was pretty obvious to everyone that Gordon was the person putting all these murders together and that was responsible for them all. So people thought that Sarah was just, you know, defending her son, but she got life in prison for the crimes. Gordon, however, was found guilty of at least 3 murders, including the Winslow boys and an unidentified Mexican boy. He was, however, suspected of killing at least 20 other boys. Apart from this was never proven, but he was suspected of that, so definitely killed 3 boys and suspected of 20. Now, for these murders, on the 2nd of October 1930, he was executed by hanging. And in an attempt to get Christine some sort of justice, like she had lost her son and she was put through so much stress, so much trauma, wrongly accused, she actually won a lawsuit against Jones, the person who had pretty much made her life a misery, apart from Gordon, obviously. So she was given compensation in the form of money for $10,800, which actually in today's money, if you convert it, comes to about over $150,000. But Jones refused to pay this, and he was actually like given time off work during this time. Like, he just was refusing to pay this to Christine, so she was entitled to so much money. Like, obviously no amount of money was going to make up for what had happened to her, but she was entitled to so much money and she didn't get a penny off it, not anything, no compensation. And for the rest of her life she would not give up looking for her missing son. She didn't believe that he was killed. She'd search for him for the rest of her life, but unfortunately he was never found.
Still think he's out there?
Why not? 3 boys made a run for it that night, Detective, and if one got out, then maybe either or both of the others did too.
So that is the case of Walter Collins. In some forms it's been solved. It's still not completely definitely known what's happened, but it's pretty much suspected that unfortunately he was one of the victims in the chicken coop murders. So that was my first mystery video. I hope that you've found it interesting. If you want to see more of these, don't forget to give me a thumbs up and hit that little subscribe button for more of, well, I make such like a range of videos, so if you're interested, then please stick around. And yeah, thanks for watching. I'll make new videos every single Wednesday, and I will see you guys soon. Bye. It is a conspiracy theory book. I thought I'd heard like every conspiracy theory in